In this video, I answer a question from Jelena and explain how do exams work in Finnish universities and other institutions of higher education. What's up guys and welcome back to the channel. If this is the first time we are meeting, my name is Oliver and I'm a master's student in economics at Aalto University in Finland. And on this channel, we talk about education and early career development, specifically here in Finland. So if you are new here, do consider subscribing. Alright, so let's talk about exams in Finland. So in Finnish universities, if a course includes an exam, the university must arrange at least 2 opportunities to take it. First, we have the main course exam, and after that, at least 1 additional exam in case you want to redo the original one, or if you weren't able to attend it. So these exams are, at least most often, held 6 weeks apart. So if you fail the first one, you have to wait until the next evaluation period to redo it. So if you don't yet know how evaluation periods work in Finland, I have a video explaining them right here. Also good to know, in Finland, you do not need a reason to redo an exam. Rather, it is your right to register to an additional exam. For example, in the case you aren't simply happy with the original grade. Before you go and do your first exam in Finland, it is good to know that it's common practice that you need at least 50% of the exam points in order to A, pass the exam, and B, to pass the entire course. So this means that if you get under 50% from your exam, it doesn't matter how many points you get from the rest of the course, rather you will most likely fail the entire course. In case that you fail both exams, or you fail the first one and you don't redo it, you have to retake the entire course. Next, let's talk about exam timetables. So in Finland, an examination begins when the supervisor gives permission to start. So even if the exam is marked to begin, say, at 1 p.m., it will start officially only after the supervisor so states. Actually, a mistake that I see many international students make is that they start browsing through the exam materials before the exam has officially begun, either to read the questions or to simply write their name on the paper. However, in Finland, exam papers have to be kept upside down until the exam supervisor gives permission to start the exam. So it is just safe if you don't touch the papers at all before you are given permission to do so. Alright, so how long are exams usually in Finland? So this will depend on your school and the course, but in my experience, the majority of exams are 2 to 4 hours long. Also, if an exam lasts over 60 minutes, students doing the exam are allowed to arrive up to 30 minutes after the official start of the exam. In addition, students may leave the examination hall no sooner than 35 minutes after the official start of the exam. So the time of the exam is counted from the actual start of the examination, and the exam ends when the supervisors say so. The remaining time in the exam will most often be displayed by the supervisors either on the wall or on a whiteboard so that all participants can see it without having a watch with them. So before we move to the next section of this video, I just wanted to bring you guys to one of my favorite places in the entire world. This is actually the lake next to our summer cottage, and this is one of the quintessential Finnish nature landscapes that many people think of when they think of Finland. We have a beautiful, calm lake with autumn colors and a lakeside sauna. This is also where today's sponsor, Arni, comes in. So Arni is a Finnish brand that designs and manufactures these beautiful, beautiful wooden watches and sunglasses. So the guys at Arni get their inspiration from these Finnish landscapes, and I especially love this Arni XO Elm watch, which has its case made out of Finnish elm wood, and it has this beautiful white dial. So the guys at Arni were nice enough to provide me with a discount code that you guys can use to get a piece of Finnish nature for yourself. Next up, what can you actually bring with you to an examination? So as a rule of thumb, in Finland, students are allowed to bring only their identification and essential writing materials into the exam. Bags and jackets are not allowed to be kept with you during the examination, Rather, they must be left in a location indicated by the exam supervisor. If other materials are permitted, they will be announced in connection to the course information or the exam questions. For example, it is common practice that you are not allowed to use your own graphing calculator, and it is also pretty common that the university will provide all students with calculators for the exam. Also, even though it is not usually stated, it is commonly okay to bring a bottle of water to the exam. However, note that if your bottle has a label or writing on it, the exam supervisor can and is allowed to request you to put it in your bag. So all materials used during the exam must be kept visible at all times, and the exam supervisors do again have the right to check any and all the materials that you have during and after the exam. Alright, so next up, how do you actually deal with examination materials and papers that are given to you for the duration of the exam? So as a rule of thumb, students who are taking an exam can only use the official answer sheets issued by the exam supervisors. So answers written to any other materials are not taken into account when grading the exam. So do note that all answer sheets, question sheets, and for example, additional scratch paper that you use to sketch out your answers must be returned to the supervisor. A failure to do this can actually be considered as an attempt to cheat, so make sure not to take any exam materials with you. Next up, let's talk about registering to exams. So only students who have registered as instructed for the examination have a right to enter the examination hall or online examination site. So registration for an examination is interpreted as participation in the exam, and a failure to attend is actually marked in the student register as failed. Also, really good to note that in Finland, a registration for a course is most often also interpreted as a registration for any interim tests and for the course examination. So what this means is that normally you do not need to register for the first course exam separately. However, registration for exams that are not included in the registration for the course must be done afterwards. In most cases, you must register to the additional exams no later than 7 days beforehand. Alright, so let's talk shortly about appealing against a grade. So students who are not satisfied with the grading of an examination have the right to raise an appeal with the teacher in charge of the evaluation. If you are dissatisfied with the first appeals decision made by the teacher, you can also appeal further to the Academic Appeals Board. However, in my experience and based on the cases that I've heard of, the clear majority of appeals made by students are based on their personal belief that the teacher has made a mistake, while in fact the student has A, misunderstood the question, or B, they are simply mistaken in thinking that they had a correct answer to the question. Especially in terms of open questions and essays, I would think it through very hard if it's worth appealing, because it is highly likely that it is you who made a mistake or misinterpreted the question. Finally, let's talk a bit about what exams are actually like in Finland. So of course, exams will depend on your school, degree, as well as the course itself, but in my experience, there are basically 3 things that international students should know before taking their first exams in Finland. So the first thing I would say is that Finnish universities put more emphasis on actually teaching the students to understand the theory, principles, and context behind the course and exam materials, rather than having them remember a bunch of facts and figures by heart. So even though exams in most large courses use a lot of multiple choice questions, they almost always also include essays or other assignments where you have to explain a specific term or phenomena. In my experience, multiple choice questions only make around 40 to 50% of exam points, so if you want to pass your exams, and especially if you want to get good grades, it is certainly not enough to learn the materials by heart. Rather, you need to actually understand the theories taught during the course. Also, good to note, the further you get in your studies, the less multiple choice questions are used. This means that questions become more and more practical over time, and for example, during my master studies, we had mostly essay questions that required you to understand multiple different topics just to answer one question. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you are used to learning facts and figures by heart, this exam strategy will most likely not work well in Finland. So the second thing I would like to say is that if an exam question has a limited space or a limited amount of words assigned for it, make sure to keep to those limitations. So some teachers in Finland are extremely strict about this, and some will actually give you 0 points if you go over these limitations. So the point of these kind of questions is that you need to be able to answer the question in a concise manner, and trying to fill the space with additional buzzwords will not help you gain additional points. All right, so the final thing that I would say is that in Finland, the point with exams is that you need to answer to as many, and of course, preferably to all the questions using the time you have been given. So I know that this might sound really, really weird to a lot of you guys, but why I'm actually saying this is that during my time in Germany, we had a few exams, and I actually heard that this was common practice there, where the exam itself would be like 20 pages long, and it would not be realistic to answer all the questions within the allotted time. So what I learned afterwards was that in German, it's pretty common practice that in exams you have to prioritize questions that you know you can answer and which give you enough points to pass the exam. So the point here is that these kind of exams do not in general exist in Finland. Rather, exams are made in such a way that if you have studied well enough, you should be able to answer all questions correctly with time to spare. But yeah, I think that these are the most important points that you need to know about exams in Finnish universities. Anyways, that is it for this video. If you found this video helpful, do give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend who might also be interested in the topic. Also, if you have anything to ask about this or any other topic related to studying or working in Finland, do write them down in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.